What's going on, guys? My name is RagingRaptor and welcome to a new video, because today we have some more interesting news. Wargaming gave us more detail about the upcoming Pearl River, which is right now being tested in the Supertest. But it's important to know, it's not only one map which is being tested or one option of Pearl River. There are now two options which are being tested right now. And to illustrate this a little bit further, I made this handy dandy little graphics showing how the old looked like, how the first iteration looked like. I already talked about this before, so if you want to look at it, feel free to. And now we have iteration 2 option 1 and iteration 2 option 2. But yeah, this is how the old minimap looked like. You could see the bases were one's up here, one was up here. You had this fighting alley, you had this more or less open fightish field, and you have this middle position where you could just drive around and try to shoot over there or try to flank the people depending where you came from. And you had this corridor. The first iteration of the Pearl River map basically was a 1x1 carbon copy with only minor differences. And this is pretty interesting because this is how we used to know the map, and this is how I think a lot of people and a lot of players would have loved to see the map come back to. One thing I really want to point out right now is Wargaming, please let us, the community, partake in testing of those two options, because it is I don't care if the map looks like poop. Like, as long as it's playable and we can test it on a test server and maybe even try to give you feedback what we encountered on, is much better than just having a small selective group of super testers. This is not something against the system. It would be much better if we all had the option to play this version and this version. So now let's quickly just glance over them, because there are some changes. Iteration 2 mainly looks like the first iteration, and iteration 2 option 2 is basically just a slight modification. You get one more alleyway in the middle, and that's about it. And those positions over here got a little bit more confined. This first operation, however, is much more pronounced, the changes at least, because they completely opened up this middle spot, giving us, I don't know, maybe around 10 to 20% more playable area. The same thing which could be said is, you can see that those spots were grayed out in the first iteration. However, in the second iteration, on both options, those positions are opened up. So that is very interesting. So now let's have a look at what they have to say. Let's talk about the first option with the open midfield, which is probably the more preferable option for most people. So the central hill with houses has been reworked to be one of the main spots. Now you can take control over it and oversee a considerable part of the map. And well, you can see from these pictures very clearly, here you have the rain. It kind of feels a little bit like mines. So I'm a little bit skeptical how this is going to work out, because mines in tier 10 is not really that much fun to play, in my personal opinion, obviously. If you have different opinions, feel free to share it down low in the comment section, and please, I'll leave a link, feel free to go into this post, or the American post if you're from NA, and leave your opinion there, because this is where we probably will be heard. But yeah, this middle position now, you can do stuff. The houses under the hill have either been removed or moved onto the hill to prevent heavy player separation in this direction. So then down here, we lost those common, or well, just those positions you could usually drive around and spot some people or do some heavy battle combat there. Those positions down here or here. Now, the entire southwest has been opened up to allow quick attacks and flank maneuvers, as well as concealment. Okay, I just had to think about what I wanted to say, because this is this part down here, meaning that we have now not a corridor over here, we have it much more open, which allows us to shoot either over here or get flanked from over there. So that sounds pretty promising, because if you remember, this hill here basically prevented any side shots from those middle positions down there. And those hills are still kind of, as you can see here, spotted part of it, but not that much of a part of it. You can see that in the option 2, which doesn't have the open middle, it looks like more uniform, but also more corridor-like. And lastly, the mountains near the base are now defensive positions. We can once again see it in this picture. It looks like you can basically drive up here and here and be able to do some shots into the enemy approaching you. This might be a little bit overpowered depending how it plays out. You can see that most of those positions up here are very, 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 very open, however. This is the spot in the middle you're fighting, this is where you drive up there. As you can see, it looks very open, and it even looks like you could easily drive down here so you can probably flank some people. This is much more convenient than what we have in mines, where in mines, if you try to drop down, you can only do it in one specific spot, and you have to be very, very careful. Otherwise, you will lose your entire tank or a big chunk of your hit points. Lastly, there are some more pictures of the map. This is the other corner around here. As you can see, it's a lot more playable right now, even though it has some water spots, but it looks like it's much, much more playable, as you can see down here. Look at that. This is nothing grayed out. This is all playable area. As you can see here, you could maybe even stay hulled down here, but you have to obviously watch out for artillery. You can get shot from here, from the city most likely, or the middle position. So yeah, that looks very, very interesting. And this is one of the defensive positions for the lower base. Looks challenging to kill these campers there. And this looks like still the first one. That's hard to tell, I actually don't know. It probably was the other defensive position. But now let's look to the second option, because the second option sounds very interesting. There are no more bushes on the map. Now only trees can be used as concealment. This is something very, very interesting if you think about it. No more bushes. That's an interesting approach by Wargaming. They added a passage to connect the flank for heavy tanks with the center, as well as a more safe passage along the edges of the map connecting each base. So now we have this position right here, and you can see that there, with this grayed out area, we have some spots you could approach the base, which are now up here and over here, a little bit more safely. So now you can decide to do a YOLO over here, and you stay rather safe-ish. Again, now we can go, if you want this flank right in here, or do the opposite. Next up, we have now we can partially traverse the mountains near the base, and they use spots for defense. So those were the positions up here, which we already have in the first option. All buildings in the village center can be destroyed. Now this sounds interesting. It sounds like that all the buildings over here are able to be destroyed. That is interesting, an interesting approach. The terrain was flattened, allowing you to retreat more safely. This was most likely for number 5 over here, so you can escape more easily over here. And lastly, a previous impassable mountain is now accessible, this spot over here. And if you now quickly check it with our maps, there was a mountain over here. You can see it also here slightly. So they changed that over here. Now you can drive through it. Where meanwhile here you can actually see it. Here it is still grayed out. Where meanwhile here it's still open. Oh boy, this is a lot of things. Like, it's hard to tell to me. It's really hard for me to say which one, just from the pictures, I would prefer more. Again, Wargaming, please consider giving everybody the option to test those maps. They don't need to look perfect, they don't need to look photo finishing. Just give us, I don't know, a week to just play those maps, get our communities together, try them out, drive around, see if we can climb somewhere even. Probably Xanillion would love that. And see how it goes. So again, apparently all those houses in the middle position are now being destroyable. Like, you can just flatten them. Again, you can see it's a little bit more secret. There are less options to shoot into the city or getting shot at by the city because there are more mountains. So meaning that this upper position over here, it looks like it's much more a game winning than this one over here. Yes, here you are quickly in a base and more secure to go into the base, but here you have much more much more positions to traverse and get into an advantageous position. But that's about it, guys. What do you guys think? Again, leave a comment in the comment section below. If you're new to the channel, feel free to leave me a sub. What do you like more? Original? I know this is not the original because there was one iteration where the base was down here, but this one was the best picture I found. Do you like the old one, the first iteration, which is very close to the old one, the second iteration option 1, or the second iteration option 2? It's up to you guys. Let me know in the comment section below. I personally would say I like option 1 more, even though I'm slightly scared of it becoming a new mines, but it's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell because we got options to drive down. Maybe you can even YOLO up with a EBR, who knows? That's all up in the stars. My name is RagingRaptor. Thank you so much for watching. Cheers.